Welcome to the Dental Implant Practices podcast, where each episode will explore how to integrate dental implants into your practice and into bone, with your host, Dr. Philip Gordon.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Implant Practices podcast. I'm your host, Philip Gordon, and today it's my special guest to introduce a kind of a revolutionary person in the dental industry, Mr. Fred Joyal. He is the author of Everything is Marketing and his second book, Becoming Remarkable. Fred co-founded the 1-800-Dentist referral service in 1986. In his books, he reveals how dentists can adapt and thrive by understanding and embracing recent shifts in patient behavior, new technology, and the economy of the industry. Drawing on nearly 30 years of expertise, Fred explains how to take a hard look at your practice to assess what's working, what's not, and create a practice experience patients can't help but to rave about. Fred is also now the president of Future Odontics, the parent company of 1-800-Dentist and Patient Activator. Fred lectures throughout the year on practice marketing, speaking at major dental shows, the townie meetings, dental schools, and study clubs. Mr. Fred Joyal, thank you for being on my podcast today, and let's just dive in on kind of your background and how you jumped into dentistry.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Gordon. I started actually in the advertising world. I live in Los Angeles and was beginning my career there as a copywriter. But I saw the career arc in advertising. It kind of falls off a cliff in your early 50s. So I thought, I don't want that to happen to me. So I think I need to start my own business. And a friend of mine actually had the 1-800-Dentist phone number. And he said, you're working in advertising. I think you could turn this into a business. And so he licensed me the phone number initially. And another friend of mine who was a stockbroker, my friend Gary, said, let's do this together. And so we went out and found 18 dentists in Los Angeles and started running radio ads in June of '86. And we got 50 phone calls the first day. So we kind of knew we were onto something. We weren't sure until we it's like all new businesses that we had to invent this business from scratch. You don't know if it's going to work or not. So we just kept adding dentists and adding advertising money and then adding cities and then eventually moving on to television. And then for the next 20 years, television was the primary way we promoted it. Now we're in the online world like everybody else. But, it's become a nationwide organization. But the thing that happened is I started to really understand how these consumers thought and started to see what practices were making it work and what they were doing and what the consumers wanted and were responding to in those practices. And it eventually turned into a body of knowledge that I wanted to put into a book. So that's where Everything is Marketing came from. And then I started lecturing about it, and it just propelled itself from there.
Yeah, that's great. I think, having some business experience outside of dentistry before going into the dental industry is great. But you're kind of that bridge gap between what patients want and what dentists want, and you try to figure out how to pair those together. And I think that's great because patients know what they want, and dentists kind of know what they want, but very rarely are they thinking the same thing. Is that right?
Yeah, well, and the biggest challenge is that, you're going to build your practice on the perception of trustworthiness that you have and the patient's perception of the value of dentistry, which for most people, they undervalue dentistry and relative to all sorts of other things that they spend money on. So that makes, our career, our industry really challenging. And so the effort has to really be put in to elevate the general population's appreciation of the value of dentistry and to continue to build that trust so that, because we're stuck with people pretty much having to pay for their dentistry themselves, even though they may have some insurance. That's not, it's a discount plan. It's not health insurance like they're used to. And so we've got to maintain that level of trust with that, so that when we tell them, or when you tell them, that I talk like I'm a dentist. I've been doing it so long. I'm actually not a dentist. But when you talk to the patient, you have to get across that you're doing it for their benefit, not for your accumulation of wealth, because that's kind of where their mind starts. And so it's a big marketing challenge in dentistry to move people from fearing dentistry and fearing the cost of it to appreciating the value of it and fearing not going, because actually neglecting your teeth is much more painful and expensive in the long run. And that's the thing that they're not understanding. And so it's a big challenge. But I see a lot of dentists tuned into how to solve it and getting great results and having great practices because of it.
Yeah, that's great. I know you see a lot of practices. You talk to a lot of dentists. You do a lot of research. I know you just came out recently within the last year or two, your Becoming Remarkable book, which was your follow-up to Everything is Marketing. Kind of tell me what went on in that time frame between Everything is Marketing and Becoming Remarkable, because when those two books were published, there was kind of a bigger gap of time. A lot of things have happened with the advent of how patients see doctors' offices, how people are finding dentists, the internet, our kind of economic crisis in this country. So there's a lot of big things that have happened that I think maybe you felt compelled to rewrite version 2, basically, or come out with your next book that kind of talks about even more in depth on kind of the things you spoke about in your first book.
Yeah, and the basic shift that's happened is that, we did have an economic shift, but now there are advances in technology. There's a technological expectation for people. There's how they gather information, which all happens out of this little thing they pull out of their pocket. And there's the steady growth of corporate dentistry, which is a force to be reckoned with for any dentist in private practice. And so you have to have an effective strategy that integrates and deals with all of those factors: the change in the patient mindset, the change in the patient's behavior, the change in competitiveness, and the change in technology. And so I said, I got to take everybody to the next level here. If they understand that everything that they do affects case acceptance, which is the principle of Everything is Marketing, that nothing is neutral that the patient experiences. It's going to either increase or decrease case acceptance, every little thing you do. How do you get to the next level? And the next level is creating a remarkable patient experience and what's involved in doing that. And I mean remarkable literally as well as figuratively. I mean it, of course, an amazing, wonderful experience, but I mean remarkable in that they can't resist remarking about it, because when they remark with their thumbs now, and it lives forever, and and it's searchable, and it's likable, and it's shareable, and it's undeletable. That's a big difference than the old word of mouth and the old complaints people had about them. People complained about you 10 years ago, and it was in the wind after they said it. One person heard it, maybe. But now they can find a negative review 5 years ago if they want to, in 2 seconds. So it's a big shift, and you need to be strategic about that shift and how to deal with it. So that's where the book came from.
Yeah, that's great. I think, what you're saying is definitely addressing, like you said, those change in patient thinking and the change in technology. The internet has definitely gone through some various cycles, and we're definitely seeing a lot more focus on reviews, and that definitely plays into how patients are looking and searching and buying their dentistry. So we definitely have to be aware of those, and like you said, have a plan for that. It just can't happen on a whim. You've got to have a strategy in place and continually be coaching and always going towards that. So what resources do you have available now? I know you've got your 2 books. I think you've got a blog site, Go Ask Fred. Is that correct? Okay. And then you've also got your kind of new parent company, Future Odontics. Why don't you kind of tell about, how that came to be and what Future Odontics is doing these days and the various services they offer, outside of just your books or some lecturing, what actual physical tools do you give dentists now?
Well, 1-800-Dentist has always been a way to get patients into your practice. And the thing about patients that come through advertising, not just through me, but through any advertising resource, is that they lead you to a whole new group of people. If you give them a remarkable experience, one patient's going to turn into 5. You're going to build a whole new referral tree, hopefully over the years, out of that one new patient. So we've always provided that. But what we've found out we had to do, and it's kind of what the books do as well, is we realized we had to give them internal coaching particularly on the front desk, on how to convert advertising patients or advertising potential patients into potential real patients. And of course, the number one thing that a lot of dentists struggle with is the fact that it is a percentage game. It's a numbers game. You are not going to get every one of those people in, and not everyone's going to accept treatment. And, whereas a word of mouth patient is kind of, if your patient refers his brother's probably coming in, his brother's probably accepting treatment. You got like a 95% chance of converting them or turning them into a productive patient. That's never true of advertising. And that's a hard pill for dentists to swallow because they work in the medical field. Everybody who works in business knows that's how stuff works. Not every customer who walks in the store is going to buy something, but you treat them all nicely, no matter, because you don't know who's, just like car dealerships. You don't know who's going to walk in and buy that car. The guy could be dressed like a bum, but, he also could pay cash for the car. So, this is, other businesses sort of know how to think this way. And so dentists struggle with this concept. So we do a lot of coaching internally on that. And then we just developed a second product to help communicate with patients, which is Patient Activator, which works with the practice management software. And there's a number of those products out there. We knew we needed it for our members in particular to just start to digitally communicate with patients, send them appointment reminders. But more than that, attract reviews from those patients and help them disseminate those reviews into social media. We also help them to set up all of their social media connections and interconnections and give them a process where they can actively, through email, which is the best way to generate reviews on Google and Yelp, the two places where you need them, is by emailing your patients. There's a tool within Patient Activator that lets you do that in a systematic way so that you're always getting a few patients a week to write something nice about you in Yelp or Google. I mean, and so they do a lot of things, but a lot of it's automated and a lot of it's just simplified. And then it also allows you to send electronic newsletters and emails offering, holiday gift cards or clean whitening cards or cleaning, reminders that, your insurance eligibility is restarted in January, all that sort of stuff. So, and like I said, there's a number of those products out there. They're all good. Mine's the best one, but that's just the way it goes, And what happened is in the past 3 or 4 years, practices went from saying, I don't need that, to all of them realizing I need that. Because I used to have to twist doctors' arms to get, email addresses and mobile phone numbers from their patients. I don't have to tell them that anymore. They know that if they don't have that, they're not going to get a hold of their patients. That home phone number is worthless. That answering machine that they leave messages on, the patient really isn't getting it.
Yeah, it's not like it used to be. And I think even as little as 10 years ago, you would go back and I think most dental offices didn't have these automated systems. And now, like you said, it's just assumed that you have to have one. And, like you said, yours works well. It kind of builds a social platform for offices. It helps them with their ranking. It can help them with the emailing, getting patients back in and having internal connections and reactivations. And, that's never been more important in the technological world that we live in now, when people and patients have so many distractions. You have to have a way to keep your imprint on people's lives and get into their calendars and in their emails. So I think that's great. You've given people a good tool to use. And so that's a must-have in any thriving practice nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, and you touched upon it, it's essentially we have to keep, they call it in the marketing world, we call it top of mind awareness. It's like you eventually, in the course of every few months, you have to float up into their consciousness, or the next thing you know, it's 2 years since their last prophy, or they've worn that temporary for 9 months and forget that that they're supposed to go in and get the crown, even though you call them every 2 weeks to try to do it. So, and then let them know that dentistry is changing, that there is new technology, there's new treatments, there's better standards of care than there ever were before. Dentistry is getting faster, it is getting better, it is getting more comfortable. And in many ways, and I talk about this in Becoming Remarkable, I think that we need to move in the direction of becoming more affordable in dentistry. And if we use technology properly, we can be more affordable and be just as profitable, or maybe even more so. So, because technology makes that possible. It's made it possible in business after business. And it's become possible in dentistry. And I think it's become, with the competition from corporate, I think you got to have a strategy to become affordable and still give that personal feeling of a private practice. I'm passionate about this. You can see this.
I am. Yeah. No, I know you are. I can definitely tell, and that's definitely, I think, why people are attracted to you. I think you know your material and your industry well, and you have a passion for it. And I think you've got to be dedicated and you've got to be passionate, or you're just another number. So I think the things you talked about is faster, better, and more affordable. And like you said, the technology piece is what really helps stitch all those three things together. Kind of the binding agent there, that technology allows us to do that. And I know from a restorative standpoint, we're making that push more and more all the time with, scanning and milling and digital dentistry and all that. What are you seeing on the horizons for implant dentistry and the general dental practice? How are you seeing that faster, better, more affordable as it relates to technology in the implant world?
To me, the cornerstone of that is the three-dimensional imaging, the cone beam technology, because it's just, the most powerful and effective diagnostic tool available in dentistry. And it has a tremendous wow factor with the patient, any patient. I know dentists who have this technology, they scan absolutely every patient. And, and some of it they can bill through medical insurance or whatever, but they say, I want this information about you for all of these reasons. And many times they discover things that they didn't even know about the patient or wasn't observable about the patient, because you really get a good look at the whole head and the sinuses and the airway and all of those things, which allows you to do, let's just park the idea of sleep apnea as this gigantic thing on the side, right? But that's one of the things that dentistry is just starting to open up on. And that's kind of a play on words as I think of it. But when a general dentist can do 3D imaging on the patient and clearly see how to do to see if that case is simple enough or too complicated and should go to the periodontist or the oral surgeon that the dentist works with to do the placement of the implant, and be able to say to the patient, look, if I put a bridge in, these are the negative effects long term of me doing that when you're missing a tooth versus me doing an implant. And if you have, let's say you have three-dimensional imaging and you have a CEREC in this case. Let's say you get a Galileos and a CEREC. So they'll actually talk to each other. You can make a surgical guide from the information from the Galileos. The CEREC will actually mill a surgical guide that will allow you to place that implant at exactly the right depth and angle. Almost, I don't want to use the word idiot-proof, but it simplifies and makes it the placement so much more incredibly accurate. And that's important because otherwise you're cutting a flap to try to figure out how to do it. You're eyeballing it. And, if you're incredibly skilled at implants, you maybe can do it almost as good as this technology can. But otherwise, and hey, the history of this, of implants, they've scanned some of the high-end trainers' work from 5-10 years ago, and they scan them with 3D imaging. Some of these guys have completely missed the bone with some of their implants. So this technology makes it possible to do it incredibly accurately. I've watched live demonstrations of a single tooth restoration using this technology that with the instructor stopping to talk about it, fully restores the tooth in an hour from start to finish. That's a big deal. To have what I think is the ultimate standard of care if you're missing a tooth.
Yeah, that definitely opens up, pathways that weren't even, thought about in the past before that technology was around.
Yeah, and it's exciting, and it's it's a 12-second scan. It's not the normal X-rays are much more invasive to the patient than this. You're still going to want them, but from a patient standpoint, this is Star Trek kind of stuff almost.
Yeah, since starting using the cone beam, I can say that not only are all my patients impressed and glad that I'm doing it, because I can tell them I can see everything, we're not going to miss anything, and they know I'm looking at everything in detail the way that I should. They're impressed with that. They also know that they're going to get the best care, but they see things that it allows me, the dentist, to see things that I would have never seen before. I think learning how to use that machine and learning how to read cone beams and studying patients' films that way, I've learned more about dental anatomy and dental pathology than I have in the first 5 years that I practiced dentistry, just in the past 2 years of using cone beam, because we just get to see and do that much more. And definitely the affordable part, if we can do it quicker and faster and better, there's not a reason not to. So I don't see anything going backwards with cone beam. I think we're going to get to a point where everybody's got one in their offices, and it's just a matter of when that happens.
Yeah, and if not, then you band together with 2 or 3 of your friends and you get one and you share it. If nothing else, just to reduce your risk of liability, or reduce your risk of failure, of misplacement. Or virtually eliminate it. And here's the other. There's always the hidden benefit that I look at these things is the confidence, and you can affirm this, I'm sure. When you have this information, the confidence with which you present your recommendation is incredibly escalated. And when we're talking to a healthcare professional who's extremely confident about the treatment, we're a lot more ready to accept it than when they're going, well, I think this is the thing to do. When your confidence is high, that transmits into more production. That's the reality. That transmits into greater case acceptance. And that's what the technology does, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you from my practice, diagnosing and selling implants before and after having the cone beam, my confidence couldn't be any higher with that. My stress during the procedure goes way down. So if I can have higher confidence, less stress, and increased patient wow factor, it's kind of a no-brainer as far as that's concerned. But yeah, having that image in front of you, having that technology allows you to just know what you're getting into. There's no lack of knowledge, and I think patients can understand that nowadays. You either understand technology or you don't.
Yeah. And hey, that's the higher confidence, less stress. Those are big things and along with the technological and clinical advantages. So it's all bonus stuff to me. And then the wow factor with the patient, and it's this is the marketing side, right? You have to say, I have this technology for you. This is the most powerful diagnostic tool in existence in my clinical field, and that's why I have it. And that's patients, even if you don't need it, it's like I had some heart surgery a few years ago, and the room was full of all this equipment that they didn't need, but I was really happy it was there. I just had an angioplasty, but they were ready for anything. And so technology does that to people. It reassures them that you've made an investment that is going to get them the best possible treatment. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. So what is Future Odontics doing now if someone wanted to say, Fred, I'm looking for more patients. I want to get on the technology bandwagon. I want to build my practice. First of all, how would somebody get a hold of your company, and what are some of the bigger things that you think you can do right out of the gate to say, look, this person wants to do more dentistry, they want to do more implants, they want to be faster, better, and more affordable. I mean, what are the steps someone can take to do that?
Well, and see, what we're doing as a business is we're moving in the direction of promoting technology, letting consumers know that this technology exists. We're doing it in the online world, and we're doing it with television commercials as well, and radio commercials, because there's a limited awareness of something like single-tooth dentistry, CAD/CAM dentistry. And when people hear about it, they may not be going, hey, that's great. I need a crown right now. What they come away with is that, dentistry has changed. There is new technology in dentistry. There is a better way to be treated. And when that happens and they go, oh, this could be easier, and especially something like single visit dentistry, where they say, okay, so I can get this done in one visit. That's a big deal for people when you compress that time. You can't discount the importance of that to people, how much they value their time, how hard it is to take time off from work, how they'd rather be doing something else. So I have this big belief that the easier that we make dentistry, the more people will take advantage of it. I mean, ADA just came out and said only 38% of the population in America has seen a dentist in the past year. I know there's people who can't afford it or who avoid it, but it's pretty darn inconvenient for people to take that slice out of their day and have to do it twice. That's even more inconvenient. So they put it off. And you've seen this, I'm sure, in your whole career. There's people who need the dentistry and have the money, and it takes them 3 years to get around to it. Just because they go, oh, I don't know if I can do it now, and and you reschedule it, and they reschedule it, and before you know it, you're doing the whole quadrant because they've waited so long. But I think the technology is going to eventually bust dentistry wide open, because people will it'll be easier, and then they'll start to see the value of it. So what we're doing is trying to tell people that dentistry is changing. So when about a quarter of my members have CAD/CAM technology, and probably about 20% of them have cone beam. And so what happens is we attract patients who are hearing about this, who are interested in the next level of dentistry. Most of the implant cases, and you could tell me whether this is true for you, actually start as denture or partial cases that people go when you just say, there is an alternative. That's an amazing number of people who still haven't heard about implants, or their understanding of implants is 20-year-old information.
Yeah, I would say, there are some patients that have heard about implant marketing, but most patients come in because they have a toothache, it's a failed root canal, they have partials they're sick of, they're tired of the dentures, and then we say, oh, by the way, do you know about it? Dental implants, and we go from there. So you're right. I think most of them are coming in maybe unaware of that. So I would love to see that push of awareness about implants, but it is slowly coming around.
Yeah, and one of the things I talk about is where I see the implant opportunity coming is that the generation of baby boomers that is, there's 1 million baby boomers a year that turn 60. This is a generation that, for the most part, does not want dentures. And this is also a generation brought up on Coca-Cola and Mountain Dew and now Red Bull and all of that stuff. But their sugar consumption hasn't decreased. But what is going to increase is their longevity. They're going to live comfortably into their 80s. And they're going to want to eat with their own teeth. And let's couple this with the fact that the baby boomers are in the process of inheriting the largest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind as their parents pass away. So there's a large segment of society that is going to want implants and be able to afford implants as they age and age and age. And and life expectancy is just going to go up. I was just reading, I don't know, I'm a big fan of anti-aging because I'm getting old. I'm studying it all the time, but there's a fanatic, Ray Kurzweil, that talks about it. And he says, if you can just stay alive 15 more years, the breakthroughs in medical technology will almost keep you alive indefinitely. You just have to tough out the next 15. You be careful, drive carefully the next 15 years, and eat right and things like that. And take care of your teeth, of course, because this is the other big thing is, they neglect their teeth, they're neglecting their health. And that's the message we really want to get out to them as well.
Yeah, I'm getting more patients in all the time that want implant-supported dentures or things like that because they said, I just can't eat, I'm losing weight, my health's going down, I'm having indigestion. So I am getting more of that than I used to, for sure. And a lot of that is coming from that baby boomer population that doesn't want to settle for things the way their parents did and doesn't want those dentures. They're living longer. They're dating again on the internet, so they're not like our grandparents used to be. They're a whole different population, and they've got the money and the expectations to do things. And so they're going to be that generation that influence of technology and convenience really works out for. We just have to figure out a way to deliver it to them in a way that's patient friendly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're probably a vainer generation than the World War II generation. We don't really want a collapsed face because we're missing teeth, just like we don't want gray hair and missing teeth or yellow teeth or any of those things that create this experience of aging as well as the appearance of aging. This whole thing with this 60s, the new 50 and stuff like that, and 80s, the new 70. This is the mindset that's pervasive. We don't want to age, and we sure as heck don't want to look like we're aging as much as possible. And so, implants is going to be a very powerful pathway to achieve that for people as they start to understand it.
Yeah, that's great. So I know you do a lot of coaching and lecturing and speak with a lot of influential people in the dental industry. I'm going to ask you kind of an open-ended question here. If you had 3 of your biggest takeaways right now for dentists to think about, give me your top 3 kind of take-home notes that if you just said, hey, dentist in Kansas City, these are those 3 things you need to look at in 2017. What would those top 3 things be for you?
I would say step 1 is always what is the flow of word of mouth that you have in your practice? Is it steady? Is it continuous? Does it yield nice, productive patients? If that's true, then keep it up. You're giving a great patient experience. If it's not, then that's where you got to put your focus. You got to focus. Grab one of my books and figure out how to create that remarkable experience and understand why it's important. That's part of what the books do, and I think you would agree with me, Philip, that the book moves you into the mindset where you go, yeah, I kind of have to do this. I can't ignore this anymore. I can't pretend that this isn't going to affect me, because that's part of my point is, I think the golden age of dentistry is coming, but not everybody's going to make it. So step 1, make sure you're creating a remarkable experience. Step 2.
Yeah, and let me interject there. I would say, as I was telling you earlier, I actually listened to your second book after I read it on the Audible app because I wanted to hear you telling it to me. I want to listen to your voice when I was doing it. So I would say anybody who hasn't heard and read Becoming Remarkable needs to do both. So just my point of view on that.
Yeah, thanks. I read, I did the audio version of both my books just because I know the emphasis I want. I know how I want it to be read, and and I'm a speaker, so it's beyond just being a writer. But yeah, so that's step one, remarkable experience. Step two is start to look at your technology. If you haven't taken a really hard look at where CAD/CAM is today, then and you're operating with a 3-year-old belief, not even a 5-year-old belief. The margins on this stuff is great. You can now do zirconia with CEREC at this point and fire the thing right in your office much more quickly than ever before. These are big changes. And if you're not thinking about that, you should certainly be thinking about digital scanning, because there's 3 things patients hate. They hate shots, they hate drills, and they hate impression materials. And when you can eliminate that, and hey, let's just think about it. If you're just, I'm not, I triggered a tangent in myself, but a friend of mine was just saying she lost her mouth guard. And she says, I don't think my doctor's got the records. If you've digitally scanned that patient, you have the records. You will always have the records. They don't even have to come in. They call you up. They need another mouth guard. They say, come get it next week. You just make it because you have that, but you've eliminated impression material, which people really dislike. And so and that's part of the experience. When we make it physically unpleasant for them, that sticks in their mind. It's granted, it's only an hour a year that they're uncomfortable, but for some reason it's amplified way out of proportion. So, and that's look at your technology. Look, if you want to move into implants, you really need to be looking at cone beam technology, because here's the way I look at it. It's not safe to be freehanding this stuff without this information. It's your risk. You're gonna lose the malpractice case, because the personal injury attorney, the medical malpractice attorney, is going to ask you whether you did a cone beam scan or not. And if the case went wrong and you didn't do it, your insurance company is just going to settle. So that's one of the many reasons. But if you need to be looking at upgrading it, you need a technology budget. You need to be allocating a certain amount of your money to constantly upgrade your technology and make your team help you use it. I mean, the practices that use CEREC technology, 90% of the work is done by the team. The dentist is prepping and gluing for the most part. If you're going to try to do everything yourself, yeah, it's going to slow you down. But a lot of times you have to slow down to speed up. And we have to think about what the patient experience is when we make a decision, not just what's most efficient for us.
Yeah, I think those are good points. And, like you said there on that last one, these are all definitely team approaches. I mean, you can't be the one doing everything in your office. You can't micromanage your front team. You can't micromanage your back team. If you're utilizing CAD/CAM technology and in-office milling, you need to have people that are helping the design, helping the milling, helping the glazing, helping the firing, to where, the dentist can be numbing and drilling on another patient and come back to that. And like we were saying, if you've got dead time in your office, instead of just sitting there surfing the internet, you could be learning that new technology, practicing that new technology, training your team, so that when you get busy, you've got those systems and resources up and ready to go, and you're turning profit quickly.
Yeah, well, and what we've done, the last 3 or 4 things we've said point to my third point, which is you need an amazing team. You need everybody creating a great experience in that practice. Can't just be the dentist going, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to create a great experience. It's primarily created by the team. And they're creating a fun place for the patient to come, a compassionate place, and an educational place where they reinforce the diagnosis for the dentist, or they're bringing it up to the patient for the first time. Why not have the hygienist say, this missing tooth, you lose bone every year underneath that tooth, and your teeth are starting to separate, and they go, huh? and they trust her because they have a relationship with her. They don't feel like she's going to get rich if they do the dentistry. And so when she brings that up, and then the dentist comes in, she said, I mentioned you might want to consider an implant. Well, what's involved, doctor? And now everything is working symbiotically in the practice. When it's not, the whole environment feels it. And I say that, my basic premise about practices, and you've heard me say this, is it's too small an ecosystem. It's too small a number of people to have anyone not pulling in the same direction. All it takes is one, and it's I call them the 9mm pocket in the practice, and so due for extraction,
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, I think you're right. My team actually sets all the experience for our patients. I mean, they make it great and fantastic and fun and enjoyable, and they do the education and the compassion and the selling for me. And it's my job just to stay out of the way and not blow it. So, but everybody's got to know their own role and what they're supposed to do and how to do it. And I think you've got to start with that end in mind, but you gotta know where to go for guidance. So I really appreciate the books and the educational training that you provide and your products and services. I definitely use some of your products and services still even to this day, integral as part of our practice. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you or your company, what's the best way for them to do that?
The easiest way is through futuredontics.com. Then they could find our way in, or you could just call 1-800-DENTIST if you really wanted to make it easy on yourself and say, could you connect me to the front desk? I'm a dentist, or I'm an office manager. And that'll happen even that easily. So, because it all happens here. Our call center, our call center is 24/7, 365 days a year. And it's right here. We all work together. So, and that's part of what I learned from is, we got 3,000 or 4,000 calls a day coming in here. You hear everything imaginable from patients. So it's a great learning experience.
Yeah. In my practice of a couple thousand people, I thought I've heard it all, but I can imagine taking millions of patient calls over the years. Your group definitely has actually heard almost everything. So, but it's that experience that gives you guys a leg up on, being able to help dentists and patients, with what they're needing. So that's really important. Well, Fred, one last question here. Who do you think would be a good contact for me for another interview? I know you've got a long list of contact. Who do you think would be a good kind of next interview for me if I had to figure out who's a good person to podcast with, who's a good person either about practice management or dental implants or technology? Who do you think would be a good person for that?
Practice management, I would talk to Bernie Stoltz at Fortune Management. It's the only real nationwide consulting service for practices, coaching service for practices. And I would probably also Mike DeTola, Dr. Mike DeTola, who is the clinical director for Dentsply Sirona. He's probably the funniest man in dentistry, as well as tons of experience because he worked for many years with Glidewell, so he really understands the lab side of business as well as the dental side, and now he's involved in all of the technology that we're talking about, all of the cutting edge stuff. So those would be my first two.
Yeah, you're one of the second or third person that's told me Mike DeTola could be a stand-up comedian on the side, aside from all his dental knowledge. So I'll definitely have to get a hold of him. And you said Bernie Stoltz, you said, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely reach out to them at some point. So I appreciate you kind of help lead me in the right direction. I know, you've got quite an influence on the dental industry over the years, and I definitely appreciate everything you've done for everybody. And love your services. Can't say enough good things about your books and Future Odontics. So appreciate you being on the call with me today. And if we get further down the road, maybe I'll reach back out and we can do kind of a follow up with this at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, appreciate it. You have a great evening here, Fred. Thank you so much.
All right, Philip. Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.